This clip is sponsored by Med Travelers. If you're an SLP interested in travel therapy, visit medtravelers.com to get started. Okay, so before we wrap up, you touched on this earlier, but in addition to all the other things that you're doing right now, you're also part of a group that you alluded to that you work with school-age students on science and teaching speech and language science. Tell us a little bit about that work.
Sure. So I've been, our university language science center has a long history of linguistics and language science outreach. So before I even started my program, the professors and students were actively involved in visiting schools, visiting science fairs, representing the language sciences at those events. So I did not invent this idea at all. But once the pandemic hit, there was a group of 4 of us. So it's myself, Erica Exton, Lauren Salig, and Craig Thorburn in the Ph.D. program here, who decided that just because the pandemic shut down our in-person outreach didn't mean we had to stop doing it. So we adapted all of our activities that we had been doing that were typically like 2 or 3 minute really short activities into these long, say 45-minute teaching presentations that we do over Zoom. And we use green screens and virtual backgrounds and like special effects on Zoom to make it really engaging. And we're teaching elementary school students material that most people don't encounter until college. So we have elementary school students designing and carrying out a categorical perception experiment where they figure out how our brain sorts sounds into categories. How do we figure out if it's a buh or a puh sound? We have another one where kids do find phonological patterns. And so we actually call it speech detectives. And they get a list of a kid's mispronunciations, and they figure out on their own that he's doing final consonant devoicing. And so we have a bunch of these others, and it turns out that elementary school kids can learn these really complex concepts if you have the visual support and the scaffolding to lead them through the scientific inquiry. And we've had a ton of fun with that.
Are you going to put SLPs out of a job with your elementary? I was like, wait a minute. I mean, that's awesome. It's, as I'm thinking, it's like, I wouldn't be surprised, when I'm like, 1 foot in the grave and maybe still doing this podcast, if I have somebody out, I say, tell us your story. How'd you get there? Well, I was doing this course with you, and I got interested in this. I mean, you could be leading kids down, opening doors to learning and helping them see, just as you've helped me see today, like how, science is all around us and all the different ways you can use it. And I also really, it sounds like you're helping them do a lot of just critical thinking, which I feel like is becoming a lost art, I guess is the best way to say it. But I mean, you're helping them from an early age think outside of the box and do a lot of that critical thinking.
That's part of our goal. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. And I think, learning that, again, like we said earlier, science isn't just this list of subjects. It's a way of finding knowledge. And so showing them that you can apply it to the stuff that's all around you. You don't need a lab coat. You don't need, your eyewash safety video equipment. You can study your language too. And I also, as an SLP, I like doing this because then teachers also see like, oh, this stuff SLPs are doing. Yes. Wow, there's this whole complicated science behind it. It's, and so I also hope to bring visibility to our field that way too.
I think that is key because, again, I think sometimes we feel like things are ambiguous. Other people really feel like what we do is ambiguous. Like I'm sure that, every school-based or even pediatric SLP, when it's, must be nice to play games all day. It's like, if you only knew all the things that I was trying to work on, but I can't sit down and, do a PowerPoint with this 5-year-old. It has to be done this way. So, but I love that just because, again, it does just bring that awareness that we have to know experts from here to here. So for those of you listening, I touched my throat to the top of my head. Like we're scientists for that whole area of the body. And so I love that awareness is being shared. Now,